Backstage, Sydney Soundwave. Neil's here from Clutch. Hey, man.
Hello.
Thanks for giving us your time today.
No problem.
I have a live CD of yours from the Espy in Melbourne.
Okay.
From a few years back.
Yeah, that'd be quite a few years, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was a Soundwave that you were playing back then, too. I reckon it might have been.
I am the last person you want to ask about, like, the history of the band. But, yeah, we've done Soundwave before, and we did some side waves.
Yeah.
That might have been it. We also did just a straight headlining tour, and we did some mobile recordings on both of those. So
always want to capture. You never know what you're going to get. Is it?
Yeah. These days, technology gives. You don't need to put a giant footprint in a club to do it. And heck, we recorded a live record using JP's laptop.
Really?
Yeah. Didn't tell any of the clubs we were doing it. And that's all right. If you can. I wish we had done it, back in the day. Fugazi somehow managed to tape every single show.
They did, didn't they?
Ever did, which just really blows my mind. I'm jealous, but live and learn.
Yeah. So is that something that you will just endeavour to do from now on? Is just
well, we don't record every show because it's just we've
logistically
run with the skeleton crew.
Okay.
Our guys are stretched thin already, but I think we'll be doing it more and more as we get more adept at it.
Nice. And just on that, I thought, are you in possession of anything that's not technically yours, but you've never been able to find its rightful owner? Because I can't remember who I borrowed this CD from.
Oh, you mean as far as like music?
No, anything at all. Have you got something in your house, or have you got something that you have on you and you go, actually, I don't even know who this is. It's not mine. I never bought it.
No, I know all the things that I've stolen, and I know who they belong to.
And you're not giving them back?
No.
All right, that's cool. Now let's talk about Earth Rocker, because it is just a ball terror from the very get-go. You don't slow down. I've written this here. You don't slow down until about track 6, Gone Cold, when you get that all-intense. And for me, it's one of those songs where I go, if this is not used in a Tarantino movie soundtrack, it's a crime.
Well, thank you. This was probably the first time in Clutch's recording history where we said to ourselves, we listened to what we had recorded and we said, we got to write a slow song. Usually we tell ourselves, no, we got to write some faster ones, This time we said, well, we need a moment in the record where you can exhale and take a breath. And it mimics classic records in that a lot of times the last song on side A or B will be a quieter song, and that was because vinyl you didn't have as much. This record was spinning quicker, so that's where bands traditionally put their ballads, because you couldn't put as much information on the grooves.
Right.
And it just so happened that just seemed like the natural place to put it. And it's I love playing that song, but it's difficult, to play quiet when you're playing loud all the time. It takes a lot more finesse. You have to listen a lot more.
This is probably one of your heaviest and fastest records. How did that come about? Was there an outside influence, or?
Well, I think, Strange Cousins was a pretty mid-tempo, and it's kind of a dark record. Why, I don't know. The records are usually a snapshot of the collective mood of a band, and that was the mood of us at the time. We had done 2 tours, I think, that influenced us quite a bit. One was Motorhead, and the other one was Thin Lizzy. And we grew up listening to these bands, and then we went on tour with them and listened to them probably. I mean, I'm 42 now, and I'd like to think I'm a little bit more educated than I was when I was 14. In some regards, not all, but it was a bit of an epiphany to me to watch these bands play, and I was hearing them with a fresh ear. And we didn't go into Earth Rocker saying we want to sound like Motorhead and Thin Lizzy. It doesn't sound like Motorhead and Thin Lizzy.
No, not at all.
More like the philosophy behind it, and not trying to overthink it. Just play rock and roll instinctually, not intellectually.
Yeah.
And have fun while doing it, and that's it was a good exercise.
DC Sound Attack is another one I've put a mark next to. Awesome song.
Thank you.
Tell me a bit about it.
Well, that was 2 things that come to mind about it. Is our producer Machine, who was one person that pushed us to drive the tempos of this record. Before we record, he said, make a set list that you guys play at festivals. So we made a 45-minute set list, similar to like what we did here, but 2 years ago. And he listened to it, and then he kind of said, well, this is what you do best, because you're picking these songs for festivals for a reason. Most bands pick their their hits or their strongest material because you don't have the luxury of playing your more obscure deep cuts that your fanatical fans really dig.
Mm-hmm.
So he listened to that and he said, we got to have one of these go-go cowbell breakdowns, because we would do that live. And we never incorporated that into any recorded material for some reason. And the other thing that comes to mind is when that opening riff, we played it and we weren't really into it because we thought that riff just sounded too much like a Clutch riff. And Machine said to us, well, I hate to break it to you, but you're Clutch.
You're Clutch.
And as simple and as obvious as that sounds, that was a bit of an epiphany to us. We're like, yeah,
isn't that weird after all these years?
Well, that's the reason. When you do something for 22 years, you can kind of like you start looking around for in the wrong directions, and then you forget about your strong suits in the effort to try new things.
Do you ever go back and listen to the older albums that you've done?
Only when I'm really, really drunk.
Right. Yeah. And you're getting a bit nostalgic.
Well, I don't like listening. It's like,
are you not proud of them, or you just go, oh, I can't believe we did that?
I hear all the faults in it.
Right.
Like I woulda, coulda, shoulda done this, or we should have done that.
But you can't judge the older stuff with the brain, like you said. You're now 42. You're listening. You're more.
Well, it's like reading a diary entry. I mean, lyrically. I mean, some of it I'm like, really? And also, I'd like to think we're better musicians. I mean, we still consider ourselves students. Everybody takes some kind of lesson or another. And but having said that, I am proud of the journey we've been on. Having gone from, grown up and evolved together. That's kind of a rare thing to have the same four dudes do that. And
it doesn't happen very often these days.
No, that's cool.
And it's straight up and down rock and roll, which is something that people sometimes strive to be a bit too much. And I like the fact that you guys just play fucking rock and roll.
These days it's easy to. You go into studios, you can put 96 tracks and do all sorts of trickery and smoke and mirrors, and for some bands that works. For us, no. I mean, I like it when I can hear the size of the room that John Bonham is playing in. I like it when I can hear the one amplifier that David Gilmour's playing through.
Yeah.
And even if that solo isn't perfect or that's I find perfection to be boring, and it's the imperfection that makes it human and beautiful. And
it's funny that you bring up Bonham, because for the life of me, I forget the name of the song every time, but you can hear the squeak in Bonham's kick pedal.
Have you ever listened to that thing that's floating around called John Bonham Rules?
No.
It's just John Bonham's drum track soloed.
Oh.
From the first couple selections from the first 3 or 4 Zeppelin albums. And you can hear the music coming in through his headphones.
See, that's what I love.
And you hear him grunting, and you hear him grunt. You hear the squeaking of his hardware, and that's a moment.
Yeah,
that's a human moment. Whereas a lot of the music you hear today, there's nothing singular about it. It's just very. Well, I don't know what the right word is, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do, because it's exactly how I feel. I like hearing that rawness. I like hearing the fact that it's people in a room together playing and making that.
And because
you can Pro Tools the shit out of anything and take all those squeaks and bumps.
What's awesome about Bon Scott? You listen. It's one vocal track right up the middle, and you listen to vocals these days. And I'm guilty of it too. It sounds great when you put 3 or 4 vocal tracks. You sound huge, but that also gets washy, and when you have one vocal track, it can sound much more threatening.
Yeah.
Than 5 or 6.
Absolutely. Yeah, it can sound real nasty.
Yeah.
So who have you been able to catch up with here that you've been keen to see, because it's a hell of a lineup this year?
That's the problem. It's you got to run around. I'm going to try to find the Mastodon guys tonight. I might sing with them. And we talked about that last night. I sang a song on Blood and Thunder. That I did with them, and I might sing with them tonight. So,
do it again in Melbourne, because I've got to take off soon.
Yeah.
Out of here.
And I'm scared too, because last time I did it, I completely screwed up and came in too early, and it was a train wreck.
Well, that was your practice. Now you're ready to roll.
I need to redeem myself.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
And there's Baroness is great. Graveyard. I want to see Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats. It's a embarrassment of riches.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, man. Well, thank you very much for your time. Oh, actually, before I go,
Okay.
we're getting everyone that we chat to tell us the story of their first instrument, because we're trying to put guitars in schools where kids don't have them, and encourage them to play guitars and music and stuff like that. So, what was the first instrument that you got?
My first instrument that I remember was a dulcimer.
What's a dulcimer?
Dulcimer is a 3-stringed instrument that is and was still popular in kind of the Appalachia region of the United States. You hear
Okay.
it's a lot of folk music. I'm sure actually it's probably English in its original origin, and it was big in the 70s when folk music had its revival, and my dad made one from scratch.
Wow.
And I still have it, and that it's easy to play because it's an open tuning.
Right.
And there's a drone string, and I remember just playing away on that, and it means a lot to me because my father made it,
Of course.
and that was my first instrument.
That's cool that you still got it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, do you just every now and again drag it out and?
Oh yeah,
Yeah?
it's great fun. And
Is that another one you do when you're drunk?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes when I run out of ideas on the guitar, I say, well, let's just bust out the dulcimer.
What about your first guitar? Your first proper guitar?
My first guitar was a terrible Cort, and I'd never played a good guitar, and I was terrible at it. And then one of my friends played it. It's like, oh, the strings are like 6 inches away from the fretboard. So then he let me play one of his guitars, and I don't remember, maybe it was a Les Paul, and then I was like, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be. And I didn't buy like a high-end guitar until Clutch got our first deal with Atlantic Records and self-titled record. I got a 68 Fender Strat that I sold a year later for rent money, like a dumbass. But that's the most typical story for most musicians. And
Of course. Of course.
now I've got a couple Les Pauls, and I consider myself a very lucky man.
Do you now go, oh, well, I might be running short on cash, but I'm not selling these things?
I have a pecking order.
Yeah.
And then there's the ones that I'll just give to somebody and tell them to hide it from me. But knock on wood, that day never comes.
Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing the stories.
No sweat.
And thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, this is Neil from Clutch, and you are listening